Hello, this is Philip from Backwoodsbrooks Knives, and we are going to be making a dump pouch, one of the roly-poly type things. We'll be using this gray canvas and some leather. Now, I got everything cut out and was a little bit ahead of myself before I realized that, oh wait, I want to do a video on this. So, this is a rectangle, I guess 25 inches long is what I think I measured to, and 13 inches wide. Now that's to account for seams and for the circumference of our circle here, which I just used a plate, cut out a rough circle, and then did the very scientific method of taking a flexible tape and wrapping it all the way around and measuring to find out how big this would be. And then I cut about 1 inch to 1.5 inches of extra room for the central seam. The other thing is I folded this into quarters. So folded it in half, and then folded that in half, and then just nicked the tip off, which is where our center point is. I'm going to be placing a grommet in here. So if you don't have one of these, just do it as is. My sister got one of these from our grandma a long time ago, so it's a very helpful little tool to hold things in. This is an embroidery hoop, I guess is what you'd call it. So I'm going to stitch this, since I had to cut it, stitch it, and then I'm going to put one of these little metal grommets in there. These are really cheap and flimsy, so that's why I want to put stitching in there to make sure that it's sturdy. And then I will bring you back when we set up the sewing machine. I'll show you how I do that, and then we will stitch this part all the way around the edge to make a tube, or a kind of a bucket. Oh, sorry. Okay, I'll come back in a minute or two. Okay, if you can see this, get it in the light. It's very roughly stitched in around the edge. That's just to try to keep it from fraying. Now, this will get squeezed into the bottom there, because I purposely made the hole smaller. I went the inside diameter to draw the hole. So I mean that'll be a snug fit. Oh, there we go. And that'll be our drainage hole in the bottom of the bag. So we'll see how the nippers work for this application. I'm thinking of trying to make something a little bit better than these for future stuff. But we'll do that and then get on to the big sewing. Okay, so when you're threading your bobbin, you're going to stick it on this. You're going to take your thread, go through this, and then go around the little guide right here. And this is for Singer style sewing machines. We're going to take a little bit of this thread and pop it up through one of the holes in the bobbin. Hold it, click this back here, and we're going to hit the pedal. Run that a little bit. Till we get a decent amount of thread on our bobbin. And we can take and cut that little extra piece off. And we'll put a little bit more on just for good measure. Close enough though. Now we will cut this about right there. Bump this back. We don't need to fill this all the way up. for what we're doing. Now, we drop it into the bobbin carriage, is I think what it's called. Oh my goodness, this is difficult doing it one-handed. This needs to come through there, underneath that. Okay, just a moment, I'm setting you down. That is way easier to do with two hands. Okay. Focus. So there. Now, there is a little notch in this. It's one of the things that I didn't realize in the beginning. This little arm here has to go in that notch to hold everything stable. So, slide that bobbin over the peg in the middle. Make sure that gets indexed solidly. Okay. And now to thread, we need to make sure that this arm is up. Then we take our thread, pull it down, put it through there, pull it around this one big section, or this big hook, pull it back up, and put it through this hook right here. And then get some more pulled out. Now it comes down into this tiny little hook right here, right there, and it gets hooked back in behind here. And then we need to wet the end. If I can reach it, there we go. And then make sure that I am looking where the camera is looking. So right there. Then we thread the needle. Let's go like this. Sorry, I'm moving you all over the place. Almost. Let me switch hands. No. There we go. Now we hook that underneath. Then we do one full revolution. We pull this out like that. Hold on with my other hand and goodbye. Sorry about this. Just like that. Because then we have pulled on this string here. I got the scissors again. And if I pull, there's our two ends from the bobbin and from the needle. So I can close up. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to be doing some very tedious pinching work. I need to take this with our grommet installed. And I need to take the big piece with this is a closed seam up top, which will be nice when I roll it over. I won't have to make a double roll to seal the seam off. Okay, I didn't really realize it, but my memory conked out. So I went ahead and sewed this. As you can see, it's kind of like a bucket. Crud. So I left a good portion of each side here open. So that means I've got to still stitch this section. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to sew these sections together like that. Make sure everything sets up properly, and then I'll stitch back over this once I trim off any excess. Because we're going to trim the excess and make sure that there's just a small section here. I'm going to go back through and double stitch everything just to make sure that everything's nice and tough. And I need to get rid of these very long stringers. So that's the next thing, is I'm going to figure out where this needs to set exactly. Set it there. Stitch all the way to the top. And then stitch back around here, double stitch that, and then double stitch the top. And I'll be back. Okay, there's it all stitched back up. I went around a few times. I did a second standard stitch, and then I did a wobble stitch, is I think what you call it. It's where you set your thingamajiggy to that and it goes back and forth. So I did that to add a little bit of extra oddity to the piece. Now this is ready to get flipped inside out and form a nice pouch. But just before we do that though, we need to fold over this top portion so that we can put a drawstring on this bag. So all I'm going to do for that is, give me a moment, I'm going to set you down. And roll the entire top edge over. We will stitch. There we go. Find out a general place in which this could go. Then we'll just stitch a single line all the way around, and we will put another grommet right up in here, so that this will be the back of the bag, and this will be the front of the bag. So, and since this is getting turned inside out, the grommet has to go right there instead of over here. It needs to go out here, so it'll be on the outside of the bag. And then what I'll do is I'll just end up using a chunk of bank line, I do believe, will be sufficient for this. You could use paracord, but yeah, bank line should be good, because then it'll also go through that single hole. I'll be able to tie it off, and since it's coming from all the way around, the hole will be just big enough that two chunks of bank line tied together won't go through, but it will also be just large enough that the two pieces can come straight through. I might end up getting a little press toggle at some point in time, which will slide up, or I could just cut a small chunk of wood or leather for a small little toggle. Poke two holes, put that through as a slide closure. So I'm going to put our extra grommet in, flip this inside out, and then we can get on to our leather work, because the bag portion will be done. Oh, and I'll thread a chunk. That also means that after, just for your information, just after this is done, this seam up here, the sewing machine is no longer needed, so it can go away. Okay, I'll be right back. I've got this sewed. I've got a chunk of coated wire that I've started to thread through, and all we're going to do is we're going to take our bank line. That is not a knot. That's good. And loop it through the wire and continue to work the wire through. It's about, the tip's about right here right now. So we'll just keep working that through until we get it back out the grommet. And then we'll pull until all of the bank line has run through. Then we'll just tie off a temporary knot at the end of the bank line until we figure out what we want to use as a toggle to close it up. So I'll be back when we have cut out some leather. So there is the leather bits cut out. That is an X pattern because we will stitch only on the corners, so that a 2-inch belt will slide through here, or you can use an Alice clip or a malice clip, whichever you want to use, to attach this to webbing for Molly gear or Alice gear. So what we're going to do is we are going to put this where we want it. Basically center it to the point where it's, once this flap folds under and the flap folds over the top, it will wrap up our pouch. And then punch our holes, then take that off, and then figure out where we're going to punch 2 sets of holes so that we can sew the bag onto this before we sew this onto the back here. And that's our next step. So I'll be back in a moment. Okay, so I've got the holes punched in each of the corners. I've got a bunch of holes punched in the back. Now this central one is the one I'll start on first. I will sew the pouch on. I'll get it all centered. Sew the pouch on there. And then that'll be the base that all the rest is set up on, because I'm going to tape or take some of these cutoffs here and double up the cloth, add a stronger backing. So that'll run like that. So I'll stitch both of those together. And then I will end up, when I stitch all of this together, I will go all the way through into another chunk of canvas inside the bag, so that it'll get stitched all the way in there and hopefully make a very solid portion that will hold on quite strong. So I'm going to do that. Basically what I'll do is I'll just center this line right in between these 2 portions right here, then stick a needle through, pull it back around, and tie it off, sew all the way around. Call it good. I will be using a heavy-duty polyester indoor-outdoor thread for that. This stuff is super tough. You could probably end up using this for fishing line in a pinch if you were going to put this into a kit of any sort. It's that tough. So I'm going to start to sew. Okay, that's everything sewn together. I have extra patches inside to double up the cloth layer to prevent rip outs. And that is where we're at. The next thing we have to do is set up a cord down here and a toggle up here so that we can get this thing closed. So I'm going to look around for material to do that with and come back when I've got it done. Okay, and there it is done. All I did was put 2 holes, the right size for this green paracord, to slide through and get caught. And then just took a piece of leather and folded it in half, punched 2 more holes, and stitched her up. So very simple. I did take this out and wear it for a few days. It's not obtrusive. Works pretty well. So you just peel this back, preferably if you have two hands. You just grab under there too. There we go. And roll her on out. And there you go. A do-it-yourself dump pouch. Well, thank you for watching the video. I will talk to you again in some other video. Lots of new things to come. This is Philip Brooks from Backwoodsbrooks Knives, signing off.